Welcome everybody to Production Planning with DELMIAWorks. I like to title this one a spreadsheet and a prayer because that's really what I see a lot of the times when we're engaging with customers and prospects that are manufacturing or doing engineering to order. How do people in today's climate do a true production planning? Well, one of those most common things that I see is using a combination of ancillary tools like QuickBooks and Microsoft Excel and using some sort of homegrown database to do production planning. So what are we going to be looking at today? Today, we're going to be looking at how DELMIAWorks can help us solve a lot of our goals and objectives when we talk about enterprise resource planning within an organization. In most organizations that I deal with, one of the primary goals is to implement a perpetual inventory versus a periodic inventory. What this means is that most of my customers are wanting to be able to keep track of their both raw inventory items, WIP inventory items, and finished inventory items without constantly having to do hard inventory counts. Along with that, implementing best practices across all of our organization is always a key and important factor when implementing a new ERP tool. But for me, coming out of the engineering and production, having better tools for reporting, dashboards, and tracking our key performance indicators is very imperative so that we can drive our organization in the right direction, specifically when it comes to production planning. What we'll be looking at today is we'll be looking at how DELMIAWorks can help your organization get under control and provide true production planning. So in most organizations, when engaging with DELMIAWorks, we generally identify what their current process looks like. And so what I've done today is I've summarized this into how people control their organization and how they operate. What I see a lot of the times is companies issuing blanket POs to make sure that they always have raw inventory and raw stock to process all the applicable work orders. Along with that, as far as production planning is going, Microsoft Excel is probably one of the most popular production plan tools. And although I love my Excel spreadsheet, it really doesn't provide the full flexibility to do true production planning. From a financial standpoint, we know that we're going to be quoting and creating sales orders and creating invoices. And so what I see a lot of the times is organization leveraging QuickBooks to control their financial package across the organization. From a CRM perspective, controlling our actual customer and the relations with this customer, a lot of the times that falls on either a project manager or maybe a salesperson to manage the customer expectations and manage the customer's required output. From a quality standpoint and from a production standpoint, one of the most common tools that we see is people leveraging databases such as maybe an Access database to track quality or track work orders or track product. Now, the challenges with doing this is a lot of the times we can't control or we don't have a good understanding of what's going on the shop floor, and it creates a very expensive action for us, which is essentially having excess inventory, either excess raw inventory, WIP inventory, or maybe finished good items that we then can't sell or the customer is not willing to take. On top of that, having no visibility with a true integrated production plan tool really hamstrings us from seeing what our decisions are going to do into our production plan. For instance, we've all been there where a hot job comes in or a hot item, and all of a sudden we need to bump it up in the production order, in the production list. And then now what we've done is we've really hamstringed ourselves because we don't know what's going to happen to all the work orders that are after that. So that's a huge challenge when not integrating into our actual production environment. Along with that, most organizations, when not using a true ERP tool that's tailored to their needs, they struggle with sharing the data, mainly because they don't have one tool that's going to capture all of the information that the organization is going to need. And then from a production plan standpoint, a lot of the times these organizations that don't have this a true tool is they don't understand the commitment of raw materials. Meaning, they might have sheet metal or plastic, and they think, or it appears that they have enough raw inventory to provide for all of their current work orders, but they don't have any visibility into the future. And so they can't specifically say that X material is going to X work order. So how do we solve all that? Well, I'm going to be walking through a tool called DELMIAWorks, formerly known as IQMS. IQMS has been around for over 30 years, and it is an ERP tool specifically developed for the manufacturing space and the engineering space. DELMIAWorks is a new tool to the to the SolidWorks reseller channel, but is definitely not a new tool to our customer base. As I stated earlier, DELMIAWorks has been known as IQMS for many years. So, what does DELMIAWorks provide? Well, DELMIAWorks is going to provide a true end-to-end manufacturing solution in the ERP space. What this means is that from the time that an order is going to get quoted until the very end of when it's actually shipped and invoiced, we can go to one tool to get all of the information and process all of the requirements that we'll need. Typically, this starts off in what we call the ERP tool, or your enterprise resource planning. The idea behind this is that all your quoting and invoices and sales orders and work orders are all getting driven and are all connected together in one synchronous family. This eliminates the data silos from the front office to the factory floor. From there, we generally get into an MES tool, which this is how we can actually do true production planning and process monitoring. DELMIAWorks has the ability to link up with a lot of the automation that you already might have on your shop floor and get true real-time information. As we produce product, we always have to keep in the back of our mind how we're going to control our quality. So since this is a true integrated tool that provides a one-stop shop, all of our quality requirements can be met by leveraging the QMS module within DELMIAWorks. And from the backbone, once we ship and we send product out, we need a way to invoice and track the product that we've shipped and the product that we've received payment for. Since DELMIAWorks is a one-stop shop, this provides our financial team the ability and the tools to synchronously sync up with our manufacturing, engineering, and production teams. Now, how do we do that? Well, we believe here at MLC CAD and in the SolidWorks family that really, in order to help organizations, we need to put the manufacturing shop floor first. The reason is the money's made on the floor. This is where our product is made and where we add value to a raw material and actually sell it. So what is the competitive advantage for using DELMIAWorks? DELMIAWorks has the ability to link up with your manufacturing floor. With this day and age, it is very common for a lot of your manufacturing machines, such as injection molding machines, press turrets, stamping turrets, assembly spaces, to have a lot of automation. Within that automation, DELMIAWorks has the ability to plug in and get real-time information both from the machine and from the end user. We call this process monitoring. This process monitoring is what helps us develop our actual manufacturing plan inside the DELMIAWorks modules. So what does the new process look like when leveraging a true manufacturing ERP tool? Well, as stated before, inside the DELMIAWorks software, where we'll be doing all of our required actions for our organization to drive from a quote to a sales order to a work order, which then we can plan with a true production planning tool. Now, when we start talking about production planning, what does that really mean? That means that we need to see the current output. And when I say to see the current output, I want to see this in real time. we need to be able to plan for what I call a what if scenario. For example, one of the most common things that I see inside production planning is we take on or we quote a new job or a new RFQ. And then we get awarded this job. Well, all of a sudden, now we have new work coming in, and we want to be able to change our plan and see if we were to bump a work order up to the top, what's going to happen to the work orders behind it. Well, although I do love Excel, Excel really doesn't have any dynamic tools to actually plug in with our shop floor. So we're going to look at here in just a second how DELMIAWorks actually achieves that. Along with scheduling our production plan for our actual items, we know that managing our shop floor is going to include doing what we call preventative maintenance or maybe just unscheduled downtime. So we need to be able to allocate that in our production plan and schedule non-production activities such as preventative maintenance. So let's take a look at the interface of DELMIAWorks and what this production planning tool is going to look like for you. So here's what the interface of DELMIAWorks looks like. Again, if you're out there Googling or trying to find information about DELMIAWorks, if you look up IQMS, you'll end up landing on some of the most popular information out there. Now, the first thing I want to call note is you're going to see lots of tabs in here. Now, the reason that we see all these tabs and all these tools is because I'm currently logged in as a user that has full access to all of the different modules within our ERP tool. In general, what we like to do is we like to use permission-based logins. So when an employee or somebody in your organization logs into the tool, they're generally going to get access to the things that they need. For example, we might not want somebody who's out on the shop floor getting access to all of the financial and invoice information. In this case, what I want to focus on first is this manufacturing tab. Within this manufacturing tab, this is where we can build our information for our customer products, right? Or what we like to call our bill of manufacture. Now, what I'm going to focus on today is the actual production planning piece of this. And to do that, we call this the finite manufacturing scheduling tool. Within this tool, in my organization, I have a lot of different manufacturing, what we call types or cells. So DELMIAWorks provides you a really good interface for organizing how your shop floor is functioning. In this case, let's just take a look at our injection molding process. Now, when we come into our production plan, the first thing that you're going to notice is you're going to see what we call a production center. Now, you can interface with your production floor essentially one of a couple ways. One of the most common ways is leveraging automation that might already exist in your production floor. The way that we do that is we use a machine interface where DELMIAWorks actually has a little piece of hardware, and it goes into the machine and it sits on the back end of, say, like a PLC program. And so in the example of a plastic injection molding machine, every time that molding machine completes a successful cycle, that little set of hardware relays that information back into DELMIAWorks. So we call this real-time process monitoring. What that means is that when somebody logs into our production schedule, they're getting real-time information from how many parts have been run on the machine to if the machine's currently running. Now, when we're looking at this production schedule, I can filter this out by machine, I can filter out by center, or I can filter it by manufacturing cell. Now, what happens is when I want to add a new work order, all I have to do is come up here and hit this little plus sign. The way that we process work orders really depends on your need as a customer. In this example, I can take one item number, or what we call a bill of manufacture, and I can break this up into multiple work orders. What this is really good for is to do your batch processing. Maybe from a production schedule, we don't want to produce all 10,000 parts of one item. We might want to split that up so that way we can stay on time. Now, what's happening is on the back end, as we produce and create and finish work orders, the system essentially is learning this information in the bill of manufacture. So it's tracking every time that we run a work order, how many items came off of it successfully, if we had any quality defects, and how long it took us to run that item. What this does is it helps us build our manufacturing plan. As I add a work order into my manufacturing plan, it's going to start giving me information. For example, in this case, in case of an injection molding machine, tell me how many cycles are left to go and approximately how much time in hours is left to complete this. It captures my start date, my projected end date, and in order for this to actually finish on time, what we call the must start date. This must start date, again, is being calculated by statistics that the system is calculating as we run this item over and over. Now, when we're looking at here, obviously we can see the red is going to be something pretty drastic. This means that this work order will not be finished on time. But as we add different items into our schedule, the system's constantly color coding and giving you this information in real time. Now, we can look at this a few different ways. We can look at this from a machine center, but if we come up here to view, we can also filter this in what we call the graphic mode. What graphic mode is taking all machines and overlaying them on top of each other. This gives you the ability to do those what-if scenarios that I was referring to. In this case, I can see those 3 work orders that I was just looking at. And by left-clicking on one of those work orders, I can actually come in here and move that work order by simply left-clicking and dragging to a new work center. In this case, if I were to go ahead and click on the new work center, DELMIAWorks is going to warn me that I'm moving the work order from center 1 to center 2. And if I was okay with that, I would go ahead and hit yes. Now, another thing that you're going to see is as I drag these work orders around to do some production planning or these what-if scenarios to try and go ahead and see if we can finish these on time, you'll notice that some of these work orders are grayed out. The reason that they're grayed out is as we set up items inside the system, we can set up what we call a runs best list. What that means is we can specify a specific product to run on a specific machine or manufacturing cell. A big part of our production plan is to do what we call capacity planning. So from a production planning standpoint, as we audit our resources, currently we didn't really have a good way to see what our true rough capacity is in our shop floor. Since all of the information now is getting stored in one system, and our system has the ability to actually cache this statistics in over time, you'll see within our production planning tool, we have an option up here to come up here and go to capacity and see what we call rough cut capacity. What rough cut capacity is it's taking over the different manufacturing cells and manufacturing types, and it's actually giving us a visual of, do we have available time on this machine? Where does it capture all this information? Well, it's capturing this information over time as we run work orders. And on top of that, it's pulling out our production plan of what our manufacturing management team is actually planning for the next day, week, month, and maybe throughout the actual year. Now, let's go ahead and get out of our production plan tool. And let's switch gears and get over here and look at our actual what we call real-time processing. So earlier I was talking about how we can interface with our shop floor in essentially one of 2 ways. The older way, right, or the more traditional way is having a machine, right, like a work center out there, and the user clocking in and out of a job. But this day and age, with automation on a shop floor, we can really leverage that to our advantage. And the way that we do that, again, is using what we call real-time machine monitoring. In this example, I'm going to go ahead and bring up my real-time production monitoring so you can see what this looks like. So when I open up this real-time processing, let me explain what is going on here. On the machines that have the capability, essentially if it has a PLC or some sort of programming logic on the machine, we're plugged into that. So what this is doing is it's giving me access and view to what we call the real-time addresses. This is all the work centers that I have automatically plugged into my ERP tool. The value benefit is that as an operator is running a job, we're seeing what's going on the shop floor in real time. This is giving my production planning team good information for them to make better decisions when manipulating their production plan of what work orders to run first. As we run the machine, you'll notice that everything is color coded. So when we see green, that means a work center is running within the standard cycle threshold. So on top of giving us a true production plan, this can also to help to make sure that our machines are running efficiently. Anything that is red is running slower than what we call the standard cycle. What a standard cycle is an essentially amount of time that we say that this part should run in. Black means it's running fast or faster than our standard cycle. And any item that is wired in is going to have this lighter green. Yellow is keeping track of what we call work center downtime, which this really helps in our MRO tool, right? Our machine repair and operations planning. So not only are we production planning with actual work orders, we're actually taking into account any kind of scheduled downtime, whether this might be in our first or second shift, or maybe we're trying to schedule all of our machine maintenance in an off hour. So again, real-time processing is really what distinguishes DELMIAWorks from just a standard ERP tool that has no ability to plug into our shop floor. Now, the last thing that I want to show, although there's a wide range of tools that can really help an organization, the last one I want to show is what we call our master production schedule. What this gives us the ability to do is to break out an item and actually track our production schedule of this item over time. What this gives our production planning team the ability to do is schedule out work orders in the future and allocate for that time as those work orders come in. So again, inside Microsoft Excel, which is what we see a lot of customers using for production planning, although Excel is very intelligent, we can do lots of manipulation within cells and formulas. It doesn't give us a true real-time interaction with that shop floor. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. So what does DELMIAWorks do for us? Well, it's easy to use, and it's a complete ERP and MES solution that really can streamline your operation. Provides a single database, therefore it's a single version of truth. This is key in all organizations. That way everybody in our organization, from the salesperson creating the quote, to the shop floor technician who's running the job, to our finance team who's processing our invoice, is all going to the same place to get their information. Very similar to MLC and SolidWorks and Mastercam and Markforged. By using DELMIAWorks, you get one company delivering the software, services, and training and support similar to what you're already doing for most of you on this webinar. The tool is highly configurable, which means that you don't have to write a lot of custom code. And this ensures that from year to year as you upgrade, it makes it much easier where you're not having to maintain custom applications that are in their own little silo. And most importantly, DELMIAWorks is a proven track record of establishing customer success and long-term partnerships. Just like MLC CAD systems, we've been around for many years. So has DELMIAWorks, which is a big reason why we brought them into our portfolio.